Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to another installment of the Daily Journal's Capitol View webcast. We're joined each Monday by Daily Journal Capitol Bureau Chief Bobby Harrison. I'm your host, Chris Kiefer, and again, Bobby is going to go through, as he does every week, the biggest happenings in Mississippi politics. And let's go to Bobby now. Bobby, how are you doing today?
All right, Chris, how you doing?
That segue good. You had an eventful weekend this week. There you are. Tell us about your weekend.
Oh, well, I could talk about that for days. We went, my wife and I, we met her brother and his wife, Alan Ann Faust in Nashville, and we saw Jason Isbell 2 nights playing at the historic Ryman Auditorium, and we just had a super time. We enjoyed that immensely. Jason Isbell is such a talented songwriter, and he's got a great story to tell, and his songs are oftentimes so intricate and I mean, really, he says a lot in 3 or 4 minute song. So we really enjoyed that.
How many times?
And I can lobby those folks at the Bancorp. Is it still Bancorp South Center, Chris?
In Bancorp South Arena in Tupelo.
Yeah, yeah. They need to. I got some good friends there, and they need to work on getting Jason Isbell in Tupelo.
And we'll get you up. How many times for you now, Bobby?
Well, since I've seen it twice this weekend, I think that's 10.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. More than I've seen anybody. I mean, I enjoy music, and I've seen them. Now, I won't say I've seen a lot of concerts compared to some people. I've seen a good many, but I hadn't seen anybody as many times as I've seen Jason Isbell.
Is it better? I mean, is it different each time, or you feel like you're seeing the same show?
Well, no. He was at the Ryman for 6 shows this week. He went Monday through Sunday. He took off Thursday, and every one of them was sold out. And like he played some of the same songs from Friday night and Saturday, from Friday to Saturday night, the 2 nights we saw him. But a lot of the songs were different, and so no, we've never gotten tired, of seeing him. And there's a couple of songs I tweeted this morning. I was up. I mean, there's one song he does that. It's one of his older songs, that one of my favorite live songs of all time, called "Never Gonna Change." And I did kind of complain a little bit, just slightly, that he didn't play that song those 2 nights, and I was kind of upset about that. But he just had so many good songs that you can't play them all.
Can't play them all. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well.
Yeah.
This week, I guess there's kind of a predominant topic that is not new, but that you wrote about a lot last week, and that is the continuing search for, everyone agrees about the need for more funds for roads and bridge repairs in Mississippi, and the search for a way to provide those funds. And I guess it kind of all started out, would that be last Monday, with a speech by Dick Hall before the Capitol Press Corps? And I know he spoke about this issue before. He spoke at the Neshoba County Fair extensively about it, but he wasn't holding any punches on Monday. I mean, his language seemed pretty strong. Tell us about that.
Yeah, he was kind of threw some haymakers toward the legislature. Mm-hmm. Legislature said, he said he thought he was lying when he said that the roads and bridges were in a real state of disrepair throughout the state, and that the Department of Transportation just needs more money to deal with the maintenance issues. Or he says you got this this huge highway system, this huge investment that the state's made in its transportation system, and unless something's done in pretty quickly, that it's gonna be a system that's going to cause problems for the state as far as the recruiting industry and just for convenience of its citizens. And he's been advocating for a long time more money, and of course more money equates to some type of tax or fee increase, and therein lies the problem. They can't agree on how to come up with more money to put into transportation. So that's been a continued debate going on for 2 to 3 years. As you said, most people now agree with Hall. Dick Hall, a Central District Commissioner, that more money is needed for transportation, but on the flip side of that, there's not an agreement on where that money should come from. And Chris, let me add that there are people, including Tate Reeves, Lieutenant Governor, who, I mean, he's probably the leading advocate. He agrees that more money is needed for transportation, or at least more needs to be done in terms of transportation. But he is somewhat critical of the Department of Transportation, questioning whether they've used the money that they've gotten so far wisely, so that it's not as cut and dried as maybe I was making to begin with. Because I mean, I think Reeves' position would be, yes, there's problems with the Department of with the state's transportation system, but at least part of that problem can be put at the feet of the Department of Transportation for not spending its money wisely. So we'll see where that goes during the 2018 legislative session.
Yeah, I want to read this quote from Dick Hall from that speech, and you had several whoppers in your story from last week. This being one of them. To allow this multi-billion-dollar investment we just made in our highways to deteriorate to the level we have is just plain dumb. This is a safety issue, a convenience issue, and an economic issue. And unfortunately, to some, it is still a political issue. It kind of, as you said, I guess the political issue in a lot of ways is how to pay for it, and they haven't come up with a solution. And I guess the news of the week last week really was the revelation that Dean Kirby, a Republican senator from Rankin County, is going to present a proposal in the upcoming legislature that would allow Mississippians to vote to raise that 18.4 cents per gallon motor fuel tax. I guess tell us about that. Was that kind of a surprise? Did that come from Dick Hall's speech? Is that where you first heard about that?
Right. That's where he was the first person to point. He kind of broke that news instead of Kirby breaking the news. But Kirby did confirm that he's working on legislation to have some type of statewide referendum on raising, it's still being crafted, but it appears that his legislation would raise not only the gasoline tax, but also maybe a fee when you buy a set of tires. It would be maybe, and I'm just pulling a number out of thin air, maybe $2 per tire extra that would go to road and bridge improvements, and maybe a tax on hybrid or electric cars. That's an issue that the state's going to have to address sometime, regardless of what happens with the gasoline tax, because our transportation system is paid for through what you call a user tax. It's there's a federal gasoline tax and a state gasoline tax. And both those taxes go to pay for, road and bridge improvements or road and bridges. And, if you have an electric car, you're not paying for gasoline. And that's part of the problem already. The state imposes 18.4 cent per gallon gasoline tax in 1987. And in recent years, the amount of revenue it's brought in has actually gone down as cars become more efficient. There's more people driving, and there's more cars on the road, but the car I drove to Nashville, it gets a lot better gas mileage than my parents' Plymouth Fury did back in the 1980s with that big old V8 engine. So that's the problem, that there's just at least part of the problem is that the gasoline tax is just not bringing in as much money. It's not a growing source of revenue. The cost to build a highway or to maintain a highway, the cost for asphalt, dirt, all those things you need to build a highway, all those things have just skyrocketed in price. I think Hall used to figure around it's gone up like 400% or somewhere around that number. At the same time, the gasoline taxes is bringing in, about the same amount of money it did in 1987. That's the biggest issue facing the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, in other states, Hall said that 26 states have increased their taxes on motor fuel in the past 4 years. 8 have done so this year. This issue's come up before as far as the possibility of raising that tax, and specifically Tate Reeves and Philip Gunn, the leaders of the legislature, have been opposed to it. However, you had a story last week, I guess shortly after the proposal came out, saying that those leaders, as well as Governor Phil Bryant, are at least open to this possibility
of the statewide vote. Yeah, but that's a tricky proposition. If the proponents of raising the gasoline tax to pay for transportation needs, if there's a statewide vote, I assume that the groups like there's a lot of conservative groups, Club for Growth. The American, there several of them out there that lobby against all tax increases, and I would imagine those groups would put a lot of money into a campaign against raising those taxes. And so if it goes to a statewide vote and it fails, that would put the advocates of doing more for transportation in a real dilemma. If because I can guarantee that the legislature is not going to vote to raise the gasoline tax if the citizens of the state had voted, a year earlier to not raise the gasoline tax. The most classic example of that right now is the state flag. In 2001, Mississippians voted not to change the state flag, and to this day, when there's any talk of changing the state flag, the response is, the citizens already voted on that. So it would be a gamble I think, for a referendum to be had on the issue of raising the gasoline tax or other fees and such to pay for road and bridge improvements. And some people argue, that's why the it's not it's a tough vote, but that's why the legislators are, why they run for office, and the responsibility they assume when they run for office and are elected to make these tough decisions. And some people say they should be making these tough decisions and not sort of punting and just saying, well, let the people decide, because we are as my teachers used to point out to me, one and two in particular, we're a representative democracy, not a true democracy. We vote, we elect people to make those, to gather the information and make the best votes based on the information they gather. And if we don't, and then we have the option, if we don't like the votes they make, to throw them out at the next election. So, but that's sort of the $2 argument against having a statewide vote on this issue.
Yeah, and I guess the other question, on the flip side, as you said, there'll be opponents that would be against any tax increase. I guess on the other end of the spectrum is how much the increase should be. You had a story in Sunday's papers, noted, of course, it's still in the early stages of what Kirby's proposal may be. But right now the proposal looks like 1.5 cents per gallon plus fees on electric cars and hybrid cars and tire purchases. There's some question whether that would be enough. The Department of Transportation has asked for $400 million. Mississippi Economics Council, that has kind of advocated for this before, says what I think about 300 million, maybe 350 million is what the state's needs would be. And then going back to Dick Hall last week, he said that a 1 cent tax increase on a gallon would only generate $20 million. Also, to get to that 300, 400 million, you'd have to look at a pretty big increase.
Close to doubling.
Yeah, right. And so then you quoted Willie Simmons, a Democratic senator from Cleveland, who's the chair of the Transportation Committee, and he made the point that if you're going to increase the motor fuel tax, it shouldn't just be nominal, because voters are going to get frustrated if they vote for a tax increase and it doesn't bring in enough to make a difference.
Right. He cited the city of Jackson, which, the legislature allowed the city of Jackson to vote on whether to impose a 1 cent increase in the sales tax just for the city of Jackson to deal with infrastructure needs. And the citizens overwhelmingly voted to do that. But, some citizens are upset now that they didn't, I think they were seeing, and Chris, I don't know the last time you went to Jackson. I think you come down here quite a bit. I guarantee the roads in Jackson are as bad as are anywhere in the state for a number of reasons. The volume of traffic and the Yazoo clay, which is just tough on the road.
Right.
There's just so many bad roads in this city, and the people out there that voted for that 1 cent sales tax, they thought everything was going to be just like the next year, just completely great, and they're not. They're making progress, but it's slow progress, and it's not nearly enough progress in terms of the condition of the roads and the streets. And so that's kind of turned voters off. So Simmons' point and Hall's point too, were that if you're going to do this, you need to at least bring in enough money so citizens can see a difference.
Sure, so they can see better roads, and I'm guessing the 1.5 cent per gallon is probably not likely to make that big of an impact.
No, about 30 million, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So what do you think happens? To put you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby is a well-respected member of the legislature. He's been here for a long time, and he's viewed as someone who's level-headed and not sort of prone to play politics. So I think he's sincere in his effort, and so I think his effort will be considered pretty. I mean, will receive a lot of consideration during the 2018 session. Whether it passes or not, that's a different thing. I think there's going to be an effort to do something towards roads and bridges. You know, the House tried to last year, but the House proposal, let me speak economic council praised the House proposal, but it wouldn't not have brought in nearly the amount of money they're talking about the state needing for and we've been talking about what the state needs for roads and bridges, and the cities, a lot of cities are in just as and counties are in just as bad a shape. There's literally thousands of subpar bridges throughout the state and in rural areas that either are having to be closed or restricted as far as what vehicles can pass over them. There's stories of buses having to go 20, 30 miles out of their way to school buses to avoid these bad bridges. So I mean, it's so there's concerns not only at state level but on a local level too. So that's so I assume any proposal that comes out of the legislature will deal not only with state needs but local, i.e., city and county needs also.
If this doesn't happen, Bobby, and I know it's the $20 million question because it's what we've been talking about, for probably a couple of years now, is there these needs and how do you get the funding? If they don't do this motor tax increase, are you hearing any buzz coming around any of the other proposals?
You hear all sorts of stuff. I mean, I could see this as a campaign issue in 2019. And then, the governor throughout the governor's, sometimes he kind of thinks out loud, I think, but he threw out the possibility of passing a lottery and that revenue going toward road and bridge needs. Now, it appears the lottery won't bring, best case scenario, I think, with the lottery bringing about $80 to $100 million. So that would be still not as much as, the Department of Transportation says it needs, but it would be it'd be enough money to make a difference. So who knows? We could have a lottery with the money devoted to the revenue devoted to road and bridge needs. That would be interesting.
Yeah, right. That I would imagine. Maybe just from what you've heard from going to some of the lottery commission, the hearings that the House has had on the issue, I wouldn't think that there's any other state that's using a lottery. At least that I know of. Do you know of any state that's using a lottery for that? I know.
No, most of them use it for education.
Right.
A lot of them use it for tuition assistance or tuition scholarships for college. But I don't know if any state, and then maybe I'm far from an expert on lottery. I think 40. Mississippi's one of only 6 states that don't have a lottery, but I think the vast majority of them use it either for education or just put money into the general fund that just divvied out amongst all the agencies.
I have one more question on this issue. Going back to that again initial proposal, maybe a 1.5 increase is what Kirby's bill might have. As we said, some say that wouldn't be enough money. Would there be, in a Republican supermajority controlled legislature, if he comes out with a 1.5 cent increase? Would there be any chance that the legislature would raise that more for more needs, or if that's what Kirby's proposal is, that's probably as high as the bar is going to go? What do you think of politics there?
I think there's a possibility it would. I think there's a strong possibility they pursue this. That as it goes through the process, if it did happen, it would go through a long legislative process. And just seeing how other legislation works as it goes through the process, when it gets to the conference committees at the end, where key House and Senate leaders craft a compromise between what the House proposed and what the Senate proposed. I would think it would come out of the conference committee more than that, because the people who would be on the conference committee would be people who would be legislators who understand the dynamics of the of the situation. There'd be sort of transportation experts, if you will, in the legislature. So I could see it coming out of the final bill being more than that. I think that's a distinct possibility.
Sure. Bobby, one more issue I want to talk with you about before we let you go. It was a proposal last week by the Northern District Public Service Commissioner Brandon Presley, looking at telemarketers, and I guess another way to put more teeth into, preventing. They've already got the no call list and they have fines that the PSC has on ones that violate it. But he talked about maybe making a law that would allow consumers to be able to sue telemarketers if they're in violation of that. Tell us a little bit more about his proposal and its chances.
Well, he's got a pattern after what's in federal law already, and so what it would say that you continually got calls, you were on a no call list and you still got calls, you could actually sue for damages yourself instead of the state getting the money. You as a person who was having to answer all those phone calls during dinner or during the football game or baseball game in your case could sue. And I think what it is in federal law, Chris, you have my story there in front of you. I think up to $500 per.
That's right. For actual monetary damages, or $500 for each violation, whichever is higher. And I would imagine in most cases the $500 would be higher than it would be hard to prove actual monetary.
Right. Unless you had, unless you were at work when they were calling, I guess maybe you could prove something. If you were a surgeon and you were having to answer phone calls while getting ready for surgery. I mean, he hopes to present legislation to a proposal for the legislature to consider during the 2018 session to do that. And I think he wants to get approval from the other members of the Public Service Commission first before he goes to the legislature. I suspect he'll be able to get that approval from the full PS Public Service Commission. But I mean, this could in recent years, or going back 10 years or so, the legislature has been real reluctant to pass laws that allow people to sue corporations. Maybe in this particular case, they would look at it differently, because telemarketers are kind of dislike, it's nonpartisan dislike for telemarketers, if you will. But so we'll just have to see if the legislature would go along with this. What Commissioner Presley points out is that, and I have a little experience with this because I've gotten some phone calls that I've talked to him about. And I'm not on the no call list, by the way, and because I just always said, these people can call me, and they're making a living, so I can hang up on them after they got their call in. But what they're doing now is, you get it's viewed, it shows up as a local call,
right?
On ID. Why it might be somebody from who knows where making a phone call to trying to get you to buy something or donate to this or that, when it's not really a true charity. And so he said technology is such now that there's loopholes in the state's no call law that could be fixed by allowing individuals to sue these companies.
Bobby, if there's already a federal law that allows people to sue, why would a state law be needed?
Well, it might just be easier to go through the
state courts,
courts instead of the federal courts.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Bobby, again, as always, for joining us. That's all we have for this week's episode of Capitol View. Again, remember, you can catch us each Monday at 2:00 at djournal.com, or we also post a video on the Daily Journal's Facebook page. So, thanks again, and we will see you next week. Take care, Bobby.
All right, Chris, appreciate it.